It's there! Holy moly, this one's going to go big.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to take another look at the real prize fruit machines, this short-lived terrifying fever nightmare from the £6 jackpot era. Now, there is already a video on the channel about these things. This video I made for the original Degsy Degworth channel back in June 2018. You can see in the description there. And I re-uploaded it to the new channel in June 2022. So this is quite an old video now. But the one thing that I said as part of this video was the following. And the good news is that this problem has now been rectified because we've got a load of cool stuff to look at from historical coin slot magazines. Resources for these real machines are very thin on the ground. I've gone through the sort of gallery archives at Fruit Emu, the Mecca, Desert Island Fruits, and I've only been able to find one flyer. That's not to say that there's only one flyer out there for these, or photos. I've been looking for any photos or flyers of these, and I've only found one. So let's have a look. Thank you to whoever uploaded this to Fruit Emu, by the way. So there you go. When I made this video originally, that is the only flyer I could find, and I spent quite a bit of time looking as well. And towards the end of the video I said this: if anyone has any other flyers or photos of these machines, a little bit more evidence that these things existed, because if it weren't for the fact that I found this flyer on Fruit Emu, I'd have no actual kind of tangible proof that these machines ever existed. I'm guessing there must have been more around. I'm sure I've seen a picture in one of the Fruit Machine emulation sites galleries at some point over the years of a prize East Enders. I can't find it now. So there you go. That was it. That was all I had for this video. Very disappointingly, I did try and find more stuff, but all I could find was that. Now, when I re-uploaded this video to the new Harry Headwound channel, I did put out a request there to say, if anyone's got any more pictures or flyers of these things, can they please post them or let me know about it, so that we can get some more evidence that these things, like I said there in the original video, that these things even existed, because they just seem to have been erased from the history books. Now, we did get a little bit more stuff. Spar there posted a couple of links to some flyers, and we did get some pictures as well. Can you see here? We've got a picture there of a prize East Enders, and you can see the terrible little display cabinet up at the top there, and those extra symbols that you need to get on the reels to get the super special prize. We also got, going down, there is the marquee from a fairground, a JPM fairground. There's a Monte Carlo that has been converted back from a prize dispensing machine to a normal fruit machine. You can see there that they've just put a Barcrest kind of marquee where the prize display would have been. We've also got a prize Cluedo, and you can see there that we've got the marquee up at the top again. And once again, it's got that special symbol on the reels. Now, that was great, and thank you to those people who did post extra details in there, extra images and a little bit of background context. But I didn't feel it was enough to go ahead and make a whole new video, because I was kind of hoping at the back of my head that maybe one day we'll have more stuff and I can revisit this topic with some historical material to look at, and we can sort of put this one to bed. And the good news is that this has now happened thanks to the Old School Nudgers group on Facebook, and the guy there recently posted this in the main feed about the real prize fruit machines with an image of an old coin slot advertisement that I had never seen before. We had a little bit of a back and forth, and between the two of us, we've gone back through the archives and picked out all the images that we can find relating to these real prize fruit machines. The thing there is it's quite a narrow target range. Because these things were around for just a few months in the £6 era, the actual search process could be reasonably well targeted. So I do want to say thank you to Old School Nudges there, because he has been a big help in this. Also to Spar over at Desert Island Fruits. I've spent some time going through this stuff as well, and we've got some great old images to look at and some comments as well about these machines themselves, which we'll go through now, and we can kind of flesh out the madness around this. In terms of the actual content of the video, talking about the machines themselves and how batshit insane they were and how dreadful, I'm kind of happy that I've sort of covered it in that video there. If you have a look at the time codes there, the topics that I cover in that video, I think do a reasonably good job. There's nothing particularly that I want to add to that. So I'm not going to go into the machines themselves and how incredibly bad they were too much, because it's done in that video. I will link to this video in the description of the one that you're watching now, if you haven't seen it and you want to go back and have a look. As you can see, I have nothing complimentary to say about them. Nobody at Desert Island Fruits had anything nice to say about them, and nobody at Old School Nudges had anything nice to say about them either. We'll go through that as well. So for now, let's just have a look at some of the old promotional material that exists for these machines. And particularly interestingly, we're going to have a look at the real world cash value that was assigned to these prizes. Because if you already thought these things were taking the piss, believe me folks, you ain't seen nothing yet. And the first thing we need to establish is the time frame that these were around in. We knew all along that it was something that only existed for a short period of the £6 jackpot era, but other than that we were left to guess a little bit. But having gone through the coin slot archives, we can place these fairly accurately from December 1993 to mid 1994. This here, if you can see the date up at the top, December 17th 1993, which looks like one of the early promotions for these machines. Now, if you go back just a month or two, there doesn't seem to be anything relating to these. So I really do get the feeling that this was an end of 1993 thing, that these machines came online. And you can see that the way that they're being promoted here can be cited in any conventional AWP location, dispense prizes automatically, giving you all the benefits of prize redemption without the fuss, show improvement of typically 50% on average net balance, are perceived by the player as an entirely new idea, give operators the opportunity to develop a new marketing direction, offer great visual attraction on site. I mean, you've got to say that that is kind of delusional, really, isn't it? I mean, they're telling the truth there. They certainly were perceived by the player as an entirely new idea, but only in the same way that if you went into the pub and asked for a pint of lager and the barman shit on your head instead, that would be a new idea as well. It'd just be a fantastically bad one, as were these. You can see there they've got some fucking flyers there. The prize collection from Barcrest. And there they are in all their... I was going to say glory, all their horror. Cheap watches, cheap little clocks, terrible jewellery. A tiny little sort of portable FM radio, which is the closest out of that lot that you might say would be something vaguely usable. So, for example, here we are in January. Can you just see up there? January 1994. So only like a month and a bit later, we've now got What's On with its prize marquee at the top, which again, we didn't have in that video there because Pook had chopped the marquee off the top because it doesn't do anything in the emulator. But you can see there how we've got the prize marquee at the top, and you would use those buttons there, the channel select buttons, to pick your prize. Interestingly, just as a sidebar, it gives us a release date for Super Blackjack Club, again, January 94. We can also see that Chase Invaders and Red Hot Roll were new machines at this time. Doesn't mean that they were released exactly on this date, but that's clearly what they were promoting in this advert, along with a prize what's on. Now, if we just look down in the bottom left-hand corner of that one we were looking at a second ago, you can see there that Barcrest are essentially confessing to the crime. That's the sort of admission that normally you would have to extract from someone under torture. Did you invent the prize fruit machine, as they zap you with electricity again? Oh, yes, it was me. But Barcrest there are just owning up to it. Barcrest, creators of the prize machine concept. And somehow there was enough collective madness in the fruit machine industry for other manufacturers to come on board. So by May 1994, we have got BFM punting out Hookie Street. So you've got Dell's Millions on the right-hand side, which is a normal fruit machine. On the left-hand side, you have essentially the prize version of it. You can see there that they are basically the same machine, but on the prize jackpot version, they swap this really nice £3 and £6 repeater, which was great to get on the real machine. I love repeaters like that can do not only the cash prize but the jackpot as well as your spin. But on the prize version, you get a fucking watch out of the top of it. So they've swapped a £3 and £6 repeater for a terrible little watch out of the marquee there. So BFM were on board with this, saying an outstanding prize vend game based on Del Boy's further adventures in Peckham. JPM were caught up in this as well from January 1994. There's just a normal circus at the top, but at the bottom we have a prize version of Fairground. So once again, they've taken a really good base AWP and made it objectively worse by putting all that shit in the top. As you can see, we've got two watches, a little kind of timepiece thing, a tiny little horrible carriage clock to choose from instead of an actual jackpot prize. So, yeah, JPM were caught up in this as well, as were Project. Fairly early on, they were December 93 as well. Now, the main thing that they're advertising here is fun on the run. There's a thing of its time as well. Linford Christie, Olympic champion. God, it all seems like so long ago, doesn't it? But the main thing there is just an advertisement for fun on the run and how rich it's going to make you if you operate Project's fruit machines. But you can see there up at the top, prize dispensing version also available. Now, we already know that Ace were in on this as well because we've got the flyer there for Prize National. So that's basically all the big fruit machine companies were destroying their high-tech AWPs with real prize vend versions of them. Barcrest committed the original sin, but somehow the rest of them looked at it and thought, that seems like a good idea. We also have a couple of extra flyers to look at. This is the original flyer for what's on. That gives us a better look at the top box marquee there with all the usual spiel that you can see going down the side. We also have one for spend, spend, spend. So these are better images and a little bit more blurb than we saw for these on the other advertisement in Coin Slot, and you get a decent look there at the terrible, terrible tat that you could get out of these. Now, one of the things that I covered in this video, if you have a look down in the time codes, was that to start with, these were prizes that were vended directly out of the machine, like those, but at one point, a little bit later on, they swapped these out for super token style things, that the machine would pay out a super token and you'd have to go to the bar to exchange that for some rubbish out of a big bag of tat. I remember in one pub in Bury, it was literally in a bin bag. You would take your super token to the bar, they'd bring a fucking bin bag out from behind the bar, and you'd have a rummage through it and pick whatever bit of shit you wanted to replace your jackpot prize. I mean, they could have really cut out the middleman there and just chucked them straight out of the back into the big bins and let the refuse collectors take them away. From January 1994, we've got this outfit here called Henderson, who are promoting themselves on the following regarding AWP prize vending. In early July 1993, we as a company became involved in testing the AWP prize vending concept. Throughout the latter end of 1993, we have worked closely with both manufacturers and operators to perfect the Henderson prize management system. So maybe there were a few test machines out and about earlier than that, but that does tie in there very much at the end of 1993. These things were actually coming to market. And you can see there that they are punting them out with the following blurb. By all means, take a look there. I'm not going to read it all out because it is just advertising copy, effectively. What is, however, very interesting is the wholesale prices of these. Because one thing to bear in mind here is that these essentially replaced the jackpot or sat adjacent to the jackpot. These were always considered a £6 equivalent prize. So the value that was being ascribed to them within the machine, within the compensators, was £6. If you took one of these horrible fucking things or it paid out one of the super tokens, you had essentially won a £6 prize, and the machine would compensate for that accordingly. Now, one of the conversations that we had back in the day about this, I'm talking with my friends in the pub back in late 93, early 94, was I wonder how much these things are actually worth. That came up again at Desert Island Fruits, and we've also got comments about that on Facebook, which I'll show you as well in the Old School Nudgers group. But we didn't know. That was the thing. We didn't know, but we always had a suspicion that there was a little bit of short-changing going on. Well, let me show you these numbers. Look at that. These are the wholesale prices of the rubbish that was being put into these real price fruit machines with a value attached to them for us as the player of £6. We were being told this is a £6 prize. Now, even at the upper end, you can see there quartz analog watches and pocket watches were £2.95p at wholesale. It gets worse for mechanical watches at £1.99. Stopwatches and alarm watches, 99p, but I'm sure you've already seen that one there. LCD watches, 29 pence. So this fucking tat that was being put up in the top of these machines as a £6 prize was costing at wholesale as little as 29 pence. And we can see that again here in May of 1994. There's another outfit got in on the job here. David Markovich Leisure Supplies and the Prize Guys punting out a load of cheap rubbish. Cigarette lighters have entered the mix as well. That was one of the other things that these fucking machines paid out, was cigarette lighters. And also they are advertising LCD watches from 29 pence. Now, we haven't got any prices on this one, but it says again AWP redemption prizes, and we can see the same selection of rubbish there. And you can bet your arse that these will all have been coming from the same super cheap suppliers in China, most likely. So again, I would not even be remotely surprised if these things were costing somewhere between 29p and a couple of pounds, £3 at the absolute top end. And another variation on the theme from Henderson. You can see we're in May 94 for this. And honestly, all of these adverts and flyers and promotional materials, the adverts from the fruit machine companies, they're all in that 6-month period from December 93 to May 94. You can see the same prices again. We've got LCD watches once again at 29p, with all the other stuff ranging from £1.20. At the top end, £2.95. There's nothing that I can find that is costing more than £2.95 at wholesale. This is something that the fruit machine players, that's us, we're getting stiffed with and being told this is a £6 prize. And here's another one. This is January 1994. This one made me laugh, by the way. This is Henderson again, but it was this bit up at the top here, which says, returns received under guarantee service, total 39, returns from depots and operators 187. This represents a failure rate of under 0.06%. Unbeatable, but true. All have been replaced immediately. Now, that is just shite. That is absolute bollocks. The simple truth of the matter is, who is even remotely going to bother trying to take one of these back or return it under warranty or anything else? I mean, for starters, as the player, you would have no visibility of this. We wouldn't know that it was fucking Henderson supplying these. So, for starters, you wouldn't even know where to take it back to. And can you imagine in a busy pub, you go back to a pub with this fucking horrible little watch and you were like, excuse me, I want this watch out of your fruit machine, it don't work properly. And they'd just be like, yeah, okay, mate, do you want a drink or what? I mean, maybe they get in touch with the supply. If you leave your details, we'll let the supplier know. I mean, who's going to do that? That would just never, ever be a thing. I think you'd be too fucking embarrassed to try and send one of these back. You can see there all of this blurb. And there are a couple of comments here that are quite interesting on the Old School Nudgers post. There was this one here which says, the prizes were absolutely bollocks. I remember even as a 15-year-old watching a bloke called Cod Eye being overjoyed at winning a watch and thinking, why? Now, these two here contain a little bit of interesting information, but the bit about that is the way that they compensated to say, once it was ready for a prize, it pretty much blocked winning jackpots until you took the bloody watch. And you've got this comment here, which essentially says the same thing, which is that once the machine was in the place where it wanted to give you a prize, it would keep trying to give you the prize. So we've got here with the Monte Carlo machine, which we saw on one of the adverts, whereby it would keep giving you setups for the prize, but it was blocking other things on the board. So what I suspect was happening here, let's go back, it's on one of these, isn't it? There we are, there's Monte Carlo. So what I suspect was happening here, and if you think about it, they must have done it like this, is they will have put a different compensator into the machine. There's a whole different thing now that the machine has to compensate for, which is these real prizes. We already know, I've discussed this very much on the channel in the past, that machines maintain multiple internal compensators. It's not just an overall, should I pay or should I not pay? There's far more granularity underneath that. And that's why compensated machines have often been so doable over the years, is because of the way the machine maintains all these different compensators. So these things are going to need to have a compensator for these real prizes as well. But what appears to be the case here, and I found this myself as well, if we go back to this video here when I talked about how I got a streak, an entire streak on a prize bullseye, a project bullseye, which did an entire streak in fucking super tokens. It was a nightmare. And that ties into this comment here on the Old School Nudgers, which is what happened with these things is that once the compensator for the real prize got to max happiness, the machine would really try and push the prize on you, even to the extent that it would block other wins until you sort of cleared down the real prize compensator. So there's a limit to how much you could avoid these things. On Prize Bullseye, it could just decide what it wanted to give you off the bullseye feature in the middle. So it's not even like you could try and play away from it. But as per those two comments there, the suggestion there being that once the machine was into the territory where it wanted to give you the prizes, there was almost no way that you could avoid it doing so. And that becomes particularly shit when you consider that what the machine is then therefore saying is, I'm not going to give you £6, I'm going to give you a prize that's worth between 30p and £3. Now, we're already getting diddled on these machines with the token phenomenon. This is where you have to put in cash to win tokens, which already do not have a straight convertibility into cash because they are an interim currency. If you put £6 into a fruit machine and win a £6 token jackpot, you don't have £6. The machine treats it as £6. It's factored against the percentage as £6, but you don't have £6. If you walk out of that pub, you do not have £6. You have something that is absolutely useless as a currency unless you are playing it back into the machine or at the bar. So you already have to undergo a terrible conversion with your £6 tokens. If you want to turn that into cash, you basically have to carry on playing the same machine, or maybe there's another machine in the pub, and you might then turn that into £1, £2, £3 cash. If you're lucky, you might get £5 or £6 cash, or maybe you would even win. But essentially the point remains that tokens are not money. So we've already got that layer of abstraction between the money that we have to put in and the tokens that the machine pays out. There is a whole video on the channel about that where I talk about what a horrible system it was for the player. But this then introduces essentially a second currency into the machine. And this one is even worse, because now we're having to put real money into the machine, or this secondary currency that we have, the tokens, and then we have to contend with a third shit currency that these machines can pay out, which can't even be used at the bar or back in the machine, and which the machine will actively try and compensate towards to stiff you with if it decides it wants to give you a prize. And these could be terrible, terrible, awful watches which will either come out of the machine broken or will be broken very quickly. So these were just awful in every single way. At least now we do have more evidence of their existence, and we can see that this collective madness descended upon every single company within the fruit machine industry for a mercifully brief period of time, and then it went away. We can also see that they were a mechanism by which players would get screwed even more than usual. Remember, best case scenario with a fruit machine is you would often be playing at 74, 76, 78%. So you're playing against a house edge that could be in the mid 20%. If you're playing at a fairground or somewhere like that, or just an operator who really wanted to fuck people, you could be down at the minimum that these things could be set to of 70%. That's a house edge of 30%. That is vast. That is huge. We then have tokens thrown into the mix as well for the longest time until machines finally went all cash in the £10 era. And then they chucked this nonsense into the mix as well, and in some circumstances made them very hard to avoid. So the whole thing to me does look like a very cynical ploy to reduce the value of what the machines are paying out. Because if you can get away with paying out a watch that costs 29p instead of an actual £6 cash or even £6 tokens, then you've just made yourself a few extra bob, haven't you? Because you can account for that 29p watch in the RTP as £6. So there we are. What an absolute pile of shite. Do want to say thank you again to Old School Nudges, also to Spa over at Desert Island Fruits, and everyone else who has chipped in with this subject. There is a decent thread over at Desert Island Fruits about this if you sign up over there. you can have a read of that. We've had another chat about it recently as well, so that thread has come back to life off the back of the Old School Nudgers post on Facebook. So I will leave you there with that one. I will link to that video in the description of this video. There's a bit more chat about the subject itself, and I would consider this video that you're watching now as a companion piece to that one, because it gives us more of the industry side of it, and we can also see the prices that these things were being sold for, and the fact that these things were being pushed quite hard, but thankfully they never gained traction, and by the middle of 1994, by all accounts, the whole thing was dead and buried and disappeared. And we could just getting back to being normally fucked instead of royally fucked with crap watches that cost 29p. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will catch up with you next time. But for now it is goodbye.